Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Mr. Presiding Member, I would like to begin with what Honorable G.L. Peris in his eloquent speech in this morning referred to when it came to the UN Charter. UN Charter, no doubt, talks about the equality of sovereign states. Similarly, the UN has recognized the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which recognizes the inherent dignity of the human being. So individuals and their inherent rights also has got to be respected by sovereign states. And going by what the former governor of the Northern Province who spoke just before me, talking about the cultural rights of the people too has got to be recognized and respected by individual sovereign states. Our constitution lays down that sovereignty is in the people. It is just not a matter of vesting the sovereignty in the people. It is in the people itself. Nobody needs to vest it in the people. And sovereignty includes executive power, legislative power, judicial power, and also franchise and fundamental rights. This is what our Constitution says. So when it comes to the fundamental rights, there again, I go back to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the way in which the ICCPR, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, describes the dignity of individuals. Now, in this regard, I would like to interestingly refer to an event, news item way back in 2012. In the Sunday Times political column, published an imaginary incident to draw attention to the state of affairs in the then government. In the process, they brought me also into some ridicule. The imaginary incident they referred to goes like this. At the Maritime Security Conference held in Galle, Mr. Hakim, the Minister of Justice, was seated at the same table where another VIP, calling himself the Minister of Maritime Security from Switzerland, was seated. Somewhat perplexed, Mr. Hakim inquired from the guest, "How come you have a Ministry for Maritime Security in Switzerland, which is a landlocked country?" The guest thereafter retorts and says, "Mr. Hakim, you better explain how come you could be a Minister of Justice in a country without any justice?" Though it was a joke at my expense, the moral of the story is certainly relevant to the current times too. The moral of the story is regarding this. I have also gone to Geneva in defense of this the regime who is now sitting in the seats of power. At the time when I was Minister of Justice, at that time even my friend, and even to date, people like Mr. Sumandan and others keep criticizing me for having done my duty then as a Minister of Justice. But then I would like to refer to I have brought this matter to the notice of, now I'm talking of the dignity of the living. Now the question of the dignity of the dead is a matter of contention. Now, in this regard, I have in fact interjected when the Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs spoke 2 days ago in this House, referred to the Organization of Islamic Countries, the Organization of Islamic Conference. All the resident ambassadors representing those countries here appealed to His Excellency the President to reconsider the cremation-only policy regarding the COVID-19 victims. And that letter has so far not been, that request has not been acceded to. Few days ago, the UN country, the resident representative, also referred to this incident and appealed to reconsider this in the light of the fact that the WHO has very clearly permitted both options of burial and cremation. And in this regard, it is very important for me to say this. Continuing with the cremation-only policy has traumatized a section of this nation. That is not simply a denial of their fundamental right to be treated with dignity, but also it goes to endanger communal harmony. We have kept on urging the government to revise this draconian gazette, which is patently discriminatory given the fact that the decision is not based on reliable evidence and supported by any plausible scientific reason. I would like to also refer here to a forensic pathologist attached to the Ministry of Health. He goes to the extent of telling the BBC that he fears that a COVID-19 victim and his body could be used as a biological weapon. I don't know how he has come to this preposterous decision of us, the Muslims in this country, converting the COVID dead into a biological weapon. He says, you must understand, to convert COVID virus into a biological weapon, you must at least have biological safety lab level 3, which is only available at the MRI and in 2 universities. And how can that be falling into the hands of Muslims in this country to create a biological weapon out of the COVID dead? And this is how preposterously racist attitude by some of the so-called men who are urging and criticizing the people who are asking for their legitimate right to give at least the dead their dignity, to be buried with dignity. And with that, I would like to also refer to this. We are fraught with such all kinds of ghosts and bogeymen who are posing as experts. And is this the way in which this government is treating these hapless Muslims in this country? We have been always asking this with utmost respect and pleading with this government to reconsider this draconian gazette, which has to be revised in the light of scientific evidence. Now, yesterday, WHO very clearly has said, even in a swimming pool, while swimming, a COVID-affected person cannot transmit the disease through water. That again has been proved yesterday through a circular by the World Health Organization. This being the case, I once again plead, since our friends, the Organization of Islamic States, have made this fervent appeal, various others, Amnesty International, various other international organizations, European Union, and various others have made this plea. And therefore, I once again very respectfully urge that you consider this. And also, let me also come to the other issue of the ICCPR Act. The ICCPR Act talks about hate speech and has provided a provision through which you can punish those people who engage in hate speech. Now, what is happening in this country? That particular provision is being used in breach, I would say, to punish innocent people who make a post in the social media. This morning, Dr. Harini Vijayasuriya, who on behalf of the JVP, spoke about the case of Ramzi Razik, innocent journalist, who had been in custody, held under custody under this ICCPR Act for several months. It so happened there was a young, progressive Sinhala short story writer, too, having written a short story, was kept in prison for several days because his right to express his opinion freely has been curtailed by the very provision which we brought to curtail hate speech in this country. And I can't understand, when it hurts the people in power, they are using this for their own parochial purpose than to use it for the right purpose to stop hate speech in this country. And therefore, these are issues that I thought I should refer to, since since we have a little more time, let me also refer to a comment made by my good friend Harsha De Silva about our High Commissioner designate to New Delhi, my good friend Milinda Moragoda. I think it is I beg to disagree with him. Mr. Milinda Moragoda, yes, in fact, is behind the Pathfinder organization, which has done yeoman service and good work as a think tank in this country. They organized the Maritime Security Conference recently through, of course, a virtual conference that was held. I'm sure our new Foreign Secretary, who happens to be an admiral, but I'm sure he doesn't have the luxury of engaging in gunboat diplomacy because we are not a military power to be engaged in gunboat diplomacy. I must say, our Foreign Secretary is a very articulate person. He has participated in so many conferences abroad. But be that as it may, what is important is to say that people like Mr. Milinda Moragoda, because I had the pleasure of serving with him as the in the team which negotiated with the LTTE on behalf of the government. Beg your pardon?
2 minutes.
Yes, I have had the pleasure of serving with Honorable G.L. Peiris and Milinda Moragoda in negotiating with the LTTE in the first round of talks, 6 rounds of talks. And we found his experience and ability and negotiation skills were so useful for this country, and he's somebody who has immense experience in dealing with multilateral agencies, in dealing with donor countries, in his international connections. I'm sure the position in New Delhi is a very important position. It has never, we have never always had the Foreign Service officers serving in Delhi. We have had political appointees in the past as well. Of course, what happened to a Foreign Service officer who served in Delhi? A very, very esteemed gentleman, Prasad Karyavasam, when he came back, unfortunately, when he joined the Speaker's office, these very people in the government started criticizing him. Such a good officer who had an unblemished record, a wonderful officer, came in for criticism. So let us not throw brickbats at people just to suit our convenience as and when people are taking up positions. But then, of course, Speaker's office is a neutral office. In that office, for somebody like Prasad Karyavasam serving, is a good thing for the entire parliament. But unfortunately, they looked at it through partisan eyes. And similarly, I would ask that Mr. Milinda Moragoda's appointment also be not criticized, because he is somebody who has immense knowledge, and he has, at the time when we dealt with the LTTE, it was important for us, since Delhi, though was not directly involved, there were these, all the other capitals were involved. We had the of course, we had Washington, Brussels, Oslo, and Tokyo being involved actively on behalf of the international community, but it was well coordinated discussions with the LTTE, though LTTE was very, very intransigent and finally paid the price. But that being the case, I would say Mr. Milinda Moragoda's appointment was a good one, a correct one, though there were some people, even on the side of the government, those who supported the government started criticizing his appointment, because they didn't think that he was going to favor their ideology. So this is not a position to favor somebody's ideology or somebody else's ideology, but to work for the benefit of the nation. Saying that, I thank you, Mr. Chairman.